I'm excited for everyone who stayed, because I know sometimes when you hear the word pension, you're thinking, that's not for me. I have not reached 50 years old, but we're here to assure you that it is for you. There's a lot that you're going to learn about securing your future. So yeah, we're going to talk about the pension planning playbook. Mr. Agudah, it's so nice to have you. I'm excited for this conversation because when I was first assigned it, that was my reaction. Pensions, I've never thought about that before, but I know that there's really so much to learn, and you're going to help us to unpack and demystify pensions in Nigeria. So I first want to start off by asking, why do you think so many young people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and even going to 50s haven't really thought about pensions, and even if they have, are not really sure how to go about securing, their pensions and their retirement fund?
Yeah, so I was at a conference also recently, and one lady said, everybody has an old man on their streets, maybe a former military man who's been there, who's waiting for his pensions, hasn't gotten paid. The way that we sell it can be boring sometimes. Insurance, pensions, you're thinking of maybe death, old age. So it's not, it doesn't have the finesse.
Yes,
that you talk
doesn't
about.
Doesn't have the
So
swagger.
I guess with that, people don't think about it. And then you can only get on the pension plan if you are working in formal employment.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons. I mean, that was how it used to be. It's changing now.
Fantastic.
I guess we'll get into that.
Yes, I'm really excited that you mentioned that, because I know that in our modern world, our modern economy, remote work is a thing, portfolio careers is really a thing, and you have people who may have a main job, a side hustle, a remote job, and so in that instance where someone is not just a salaried 9-to-5 worker, but they're a freelancer, they're an entrepreneur, how can they go about starting to pay into their pension? And are there apps? What practically can we do starting from today actually to invest in a pension fund?
Yeah, so I think many of our parents or parents' were civil servants, and they worked for 35 years. In fact, I was on TV this morning, and a number of people had those questions, especially the older people who have pensions. They say, I worked for the government for 35 years, and the government only gave me this.
Yeah.
The pension systems in the previous world were, your company or the government will give you money when you retire or if you work for a number of years. But now it's more flexible.
Yeah.
You have your retirement savings account, and it's yours, right? No one controls it for you. You can decide how you want to contribute. If you're a salaried worker, your company does the contribution for you mandatorily by law. But if you're not a salaried worker, a gig worker, you earn FX from somewhere, you can decide to open your own personal pension plan.
Okay.
So all the pension fund administrators, there are about 20 of them now, they have opportunities for you to open a pension plan, personal pension plan. So you just approach them, you open an account, and then you can contribute when you want to, how much you want to, how often you want to. So it's dependent on you. You decide.
Okay.
And it's very important because we're all going to get to an age where we're not going to be hustle as much. We're not going to have that strength. So you need to begin to put something away for the future.
Okay, and thank you for explaining that structure. It's very, very helpful. So is that money protected in some way by some sort of body where, maybe because that's another fear that a lot of people have. They'll say, something happened, the companies or the organization's gone bust. Is there a way that our pensions or the pension fund is protected by the government legally?
The agency that oversees the pension industry is National Pension Commission, PenOp. So they regulate the pension fund administrator. So you have to be a pension fund administrator licensed by PenOp before you can even carry out the business of managing people's pension.
Okay.
Right? So if you work in a company, so there are two sides to the question. If you work in a company and that company goes bust, your pensions are intact because you've been contributing to a pension, your own pension fund account, right? That's one level. Two level, if you contributing, using a PFA, pension fund administrator, and that PFA goes bust, the money is still protected because the money is actually not with the PFA, it's with the pension fund custodian.
Okay.
They're custodians who keep custody of the money, and they're subsidiaries of the largest banks in Nigeria, so they must have capital base that is huge. So it's tightly regulated. Pensions world over, and especially in Nigeria, is tightly regulated. What they can invest in, the kind of business they can do. So your money is safe. I mean, that's what we sell.
Okay.
Safety.
Fantastic. That's very reassuring.
Reassuring.
Yes, it really is. Thank you so much. I feel like we're all learning. Are we all learning a lot? Is everybody, put your hands up if you feel like you're getting value. Wonderful. I'm really, really pleased about that. So I also want to just talk about some of what we see around us. You know, we see older people who've worked for decades and they've been paying into their pensions as they've been advised to do, but still don't seem to have enough in their old age to retire comfortably. So what are some strategies that we can use as we're still all relatively young to ensure that, to ensure that we have enough when we get to that point? So even if we've been saving, it may not be what we need to live in the sort of comfort we need. So what can we do to ensure that we're good?
So I think retirement planning, as you will know, I think you work in the finance world, is a big business. And retirement planning is your responsibility. You know, what I see oftentimes is people put that responsibility on somebody else. My employer, my family, the government. It's your responsibility. You need to ask yourself, how much do I want to have when I retire? What kind of life do I want to live when I retire? And many people here are young, so you've got a long runway. So you start working 25, 26, 27. The first thing, mandatorily in Nigeria, if you're working with a formal organization, contract work, they will put money into your pensions every month. 8% of your basic housing and transport, mandatorily, law, and then 10% by your employer. So that money goes in every month. And when it goes in, it grows. But you can decide as an individual to actually increase that 8%, minimum of 8%. Take it to 10, 12, 15. Because what happens is that as you put that in, it grows. You get a bonus, you get a windfall, you put it in. So you begin to plan towards your retirement. So it's your responsibility. You have to do it. And when you see people who are old and can't fend for yourself, that should make you think that, I don't want this to happen to me. And the contributory pension scheme helps you to do that. And the second thing to do is be financially literate. So when you get your pension statements, read it, ask questions. If you don't know or what it is, ask your PFA or financial advisor. If you're not happy with the returns, you can actually move pension funds to other pension funds that are getting higher returns. So that's something that you can do. Okay. Or even within your pension fund, you can actually move. So each pension fund has 3 active funds. Fund 1, Fund 2, Fund 3 if you're working. If you think within that same pension fund, there's a different fund that is earning higher returns, you can actually move. Okay. Right? So I think financially literate, start early and begin to save even more than the minimum.
Fantastic. And how can one get connected with a PFA? What is is there like a directory? How can one go about searching for a PFA?
Yeah, so I think if you go to our website, www.penop.com.ng, you'll see all the PFAs and you just click on there and go to their websites, and from there you can connect with them. Or you go to PenCom's website, www.pencom, I think it's .gov.ng, and you can see all the PFAs. So any of those 2 sites, see the compendium of the PFAs, and you can just engage with any of them.
Fantastic. As many people in this room may be new to thinking about pensions, what are some of the key questions that they should ask their PFAs when they're looking to get started?
So you want to find out how many years they've been in business. That's one thing. You want to find out what's their return. What did they return last year as a PFA, or on their different funds? I told you there are 3 separate funds. What did they return? You want to ask them what's their assets under management. How much are they managing? Because that shows the number of people that have trust in them. You want to ask them how many people are they managing. Right. So those are the sort of things you want to ask. You want to ask, do they have apps? Do they have ways you can reach them outside of traditional ways? So those are things that you should ask.
Okay. So I think we touched on this a little bit, but I want to expand on it a bit more. Outside of pensions, are there any other sort of wealth building strategies that you think that gig workers, freelancers, 9-to-5s can look at to also boost their fund for later in life?
So because I represent the pension funds, the first thing I say is add more money to your pension fund.
Add more money, yeah.
So add more than the minimum, right? Okay. And if you're a gig worker, like you said, you can set a target monthly, you do a standing order, and it goes to your pension fund administrator. I would also suggest mutual funds.
Okay.
I like mutual funds.
I was going to ask about the market because I know people think that the market gives better returns.
Yes, mutual funds, because if you're just starting and you don't understand how to pick stocks and all of that, you use mutual funds. There are mutual funds, equity or debt mutual funds. You can use those. So I think I'll start at that. In terms of cryptos and all of that, you have to understand. You have to understand what's your risk profile, and you have to understand how much you're willing to lose. Don't put all your savings in. They are riskier investments. So you need to understand what's your risk profile, your risk appetite, how old you are, and what level of risk are you willing to take?
So I want to talk about some of the myths now that surround pensions. I'm sure that you've heard, so many of them being in your role. So what are some of the popular myths around pensions? And I'd like you to dispel those myths as well, please.
Yeah, I think the first myth is pension is a scam. And I think we were having an online session and someone typed pension is a scam. And you see that person, the person is maybe 30 years old. I said, if you haven't been retired before, why do you say pension is a scam? So there's a lot of hearsay that people hear. So that's a big myth. It's not a scam. Every month, the pension industry pays about 11.9 billion.
Wow.
More than 800,000 retirees. So it's not a scam. The money is there. It's being paid. Many people are getting paid. And over the last 20 years, we've paid 6 trillion naira.
6 trillion?
And counting.
Oh, fantastic.
To various people. So it's not a scam. I think another myth is that people think PFAs just eat their monies and feed fat on their monies and give them peanuts. But that's far from the truth, because the PFAs, they only make about 1% of how much they manage. So all that money is yours, is in your own retirement savings account. So we only make 1% of that. So those are two myths that I always like to dispel and sort of educate people.
Yeah, thank you so much for actually dispelling that myth, because I think that sometimes what people don't understand is easy to just label as a scam, or is it not Nigeria, all these things that they're asking us to do. But it's just reassuring to know that, pensions actually do work and the system, does protect those who pay into it. So we have about 10 minutes left of the session, and I'd like to throw it out to the audience now. If anybody has any questions regarding pensions, please do raise your hand.
Is it possible, or is there a measure in place where there can be transfer of pension funds from one probably couple to the other, or probably from a child to the parent or something like that? So let's say the child is even leaving the country and they have an established pension funds already. So how is there a system in place for that? Thank you.
So let me answer this quickly. I'll come to you.
Okay.
So when somebody dies, all their pension is meant to be paid to their named beneficiary. So one of the things we advise is, where you work and with your pension funds, make sure you update your next of kin often, right? So when you update your next of kin, all that money, and I would expect a spouse, husband, wife, if the husband passes or the wife passes, the next of kin will be the other person or the child. So what's meant to happen is automatically all that money is meant to go to the named beneficiary. So what happens oftentimes is that, maybe the person doesn't have a will, right? If this person doesn't have a will, then you have to have a death certificate, get a court judgment. That takes time. So one of the things we advise is everyone should ensure they have a will. Again, talking about pensions and retirement, we like to think it's in the future, God forbid. But if you have a will, it's now easier, because in your will, it's you speaking after that. You say, all my money is meant to go to this person. Once that is there, then it can transfer. The challenge oftentimes is if there is no will or not. So if a child has been contributing and goes to Canada, UK, goes out, and there's substantial money in their account, what happens? They can collect 25% of that money in their RSA, because there's in the law there's a provision for if you've been out of work for 4 months, you can collect that money. You collect that money and you can give it to your parents or who else you want to give to. However, it's only when you retire or get to 50 that you can actually begin to access your pension benefits as an individual. I don't know if that has helped, but if not, we can have another conversation later for some individual issues.
I just want you to shed light on, for example, if I have, let's say, 60 million in my pension account, how do you disburse this back to me in retirement? That is just simply the question I want to ask.
All right, great.
Is there a lump sum that I get and the rest shared out over the years? That's just what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you've got 60 million, that's cool, because that means you've been contributing for a while and it's been growing. What happens is that there is a minimum of 25% as a lump sum paid to you as an individual, but you can actually go up to 50%. So you can all get up to 30 million if some things are in place. So the intention of pensions is that, by the time you are 60, which is the retirement age in the civil service, or 35 years, it's expected that at that age, maybe your kids have finished school, you got your house, your expenses are not much, you don't have to go to work all the time. So your last salary that you are earning, you are meant to be getting at least 50% of that in your pension benefits on a monthly basis. So they'll get your last salary. What's 50% of that? If it can pay you for a number of years, they'll compute how long they expect you to live based on historical data. then whatever is left, they'll give you as a lump sum. And it's typically between 25 to 50% of that.
Hello, good afternoon. So you were saying that pension is not a scam or a fraud, and people have been tweeting this and that. I do think they have a good reason why they said what they said, because there have been instances where the government and pension companies have deprived Nigerian senior citizens of their retirement funds. So how can the young generation now trust that their funds or their pension are being managed properly and they'll get their retirement fund on when they've retired? Since over the past decades or years, people have been suffering or having issues with the government and pension companies of not paying them on time. Some people even die without even receiving their pension fund. That's my question.
Sorry, I don't go, and forgive me for putting you on the spot, but do you know anyone in that?
No, I don't know anyone. Well, I did my research.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to say, and that's the perception. We hear is when you hear something a lot, you think it's true. So yes, but it's also being financially literate, because there are different schemes, right? So there are some schemes when you work with, especially the state governments. Many of the state governments are not on the contributory pension scheme, and that's why the contributory pension scheme started. So what is happening is that it's not the government that is going to owe you now. It's a pension company. It's a licensed company, an asset manager that is licensed. So right now, it's, and that's why the contributory pension scheme is better to save under that, right? Because it's not the government. They're not going to scam you. There might be some isolated cases where people have to wait, but it's not the norm. Like I said, 11.9 billion, about 12 billion is paid every month to about 800,000 retirees under the new pension system. So what I would advise young people is understand the system, get to know it, ask questions, and don't believe everything is a scam, right? Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you. I remember seeing a BBC documentary, actually, so I can understand what you're saying, where there was there was like
I saw that.
You saw that one. Yeah, there was this lady who kept going back, and they kept telling her, like, come today, tomorrow, and it was quite harrowing, actually, because I was just like, oh wow, like, this woman has worked her whole life thinking she has these entitlements, and at the end of the day she's literally stuck with nothing. So I can understand why that would create some sort of mistrust.
So those are state governments. So that was a state government. The state government has not moved to the contributory pension scheme, and the beauty about the contributory pension scheme is managed by private sector companies. It's just like Nitel in the past. Those that know Nitel versus MTN and Airtel now, right? It doesn't work. The government has no business being in business. And what those governments were doing, they are managing it by their own system, and it just didn't work. So I do understand where people think it's a scam, but once you get the knowledge, you have another question?
I'm trying to put my question very well so you understand me better. Who keeps the pension company in check if the government is not trustworthy? Like, what regulatory body keeps them in check? I don't know if that makes sense.
I think I get where you're coming from. So I didn't say the government is not trustworthy. But what I'm saying is that the previous system, whereby you work with the government for 35 years and you expect the government to pay, the government has so much it is doing. The government is owing or is in battle with a number of workers for salary increase. You say NLC, health workers, aviation workers, university so it's not. The government hasn't finished paying people their salaries, and you want them to be responsible for your pensions. So the new pension system is private sector managed, right? And those private companies will pay you at the time that you retire, but they are regulated by a government agency, which is PenOp. And they've tried to put checks and balances. So the pension fund administrator that invests the money is not the same company that keeps the money. It's a different company, and the segregation of duties. So the system is meant to ensure that these kind of things you are talking about don't happen, that there's confidence in the system, there's trust, that two people are working together, but there's a regulator, which is a government agency that regulates them. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Agudah, for this very insightful session. I have one more, kind of like question, I guess, which is that if there's somebody here. Oh, we have another question. Can I just, because I was in the flow of my question, so I'll just get my question out, then she can get her question out. Thank you. If someone hasn't invested, like nothing, not one kobo in a pension, and they want to leave here and they want to start, what's the quickest way to go about starting today?
I think you go to our website. Check pension companies, send them an email, and get in contact with you.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think we just have one more question and we'll be done.
So I wanted to ask if it's possible to open a personal pension account outside of the pension that we receive from the company that we're working with.
Yeah. So you only have one PIN, unique. So you can't have two pension accounts, right? If you're working with a company, what you can do is to increase your contributions, right? But some people say, I don't want my company to see how, because it's through your company you go that. So yes, it's not possible. You have only one account. But if you do leave that company, there are moves currently to say you can actually continue contributing through a personal pension account. So those that are not working can actually open a personal pension account without their company. But if you are working and you have a PIN, you can only have one PIN. It's unique to you. Yeah.
All right, well, that brings this session to a close. Thank you so much, Mr. Agudah, for educating us about pensions and making us realize that it's actually a lot simpler to get started with our contributions that we think. Could you please give us the website address in case anybody wants to note it down?
PenOp.com.ng.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoy the session and that you're definitely going to take practical steps to securing your retirement today. Thank you.
Thank you.